I'm joined in studio by SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo, who's tracking developments from the DRC for us. A very good afternoon, Khayelihle, for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Good stuff. So let's start with the repatriation of the bodies home. What do we understand to be the latest in that regard? I was reading in the intro that there have been some delays.
Well, certainly, Nompo, as you know, that it's a very precarious situation where the situation is very volatile, it's very tense. As much as we've seen the days where it's been quietening around Goma, around Sake and many other areas that are captured by M23 and other militias. So the latest information that we have is that there has been a bit of delay, especially because if you look at the routes that they were supposed to use around Bukavu, so it's one of the areas that has been captured by the rebels. So the South African authorities would do understand that they say that it's not really safe for the aircraft to move along that particular point, heading to Rwanda and then going to Uganda and then eventually to South Africa. But also there's a very clear indication that in terms of the administrative processes, they've concluded that South Africa, of course, working alongside with the United Nations at the combat zone, but also most importantly, Nompo, we saw last night the Commander-in-Chief, President Ramaphosa, declaring those 7 days to honor these 14 heroes, but also really emphasizing that their presence in the eastern parts of Congo was purely just for making sure that this part of Africa, a very intractable conflict where so many people have died, they were there to make sure that there is peace, but also supporting the semi-DRC, the SADC mission in the DRC alongside United Nations mission in Congo as well.
So with things getting so hairy in the eastern DRC, now they're going to be looking at that SADC mission, whether it should still continue. There's that SADC and East African Community meeting later today. What can we anticipate from that?
A very important meeting, Nompo, and it goes back to the previous session by the SADC leaders who were meeting in Zimbabwe, where there was a commitment to have a joint summit between these two regional blocs to make sure that we do see peace. So really the ministers, so today it's a ministerial leg, and then tomorrow it's going to be the heads of states. Once again, President Ramaphosa is going to represent South Africa. So quite a very big task for these leaders, but also what's going to be really interesting is to see the Congolese President Tshisekedi alongside the Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame attending this session. As you know, that the two leaders don't see eye to eye. They always exchange all sorts of really just worrisome remarks, especially now where also there are growing calls for a diplomatic solution to be respected as opposed to just using a military solution. But I think there's a very clear understanding for the two blocs really to collaborate in terms of making sure that there's long-lasting peace in eastern parts of Congo.
Of course, it's going to be a collaborative effort, but what sense do you get from the South African government and even from the president's speech yesterday about our willingness to continue staying out in the DRC?
I think there's a very clear commitment for South Africa to be part of these peacekeeping missions. I mean, they say South African, soldiers, they've been part of these missions. I mean, over 20 of them dating back from the democratic dispensation. So there's a commitment for South Africa to play a very instrumental role in terms of making sure that we do see peace, the guns being silenced. I think that's a very clear message from South Africa. But most importantly, issues around these also will dominate the African Union summits next week in Addis Ababa, where this particular issue will really dominate the talks as the leaders also will look at other hotspots in the African continent, the situation in Sudan and many other areas of concern, the Sahel in West Africa as well.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Kaya, for coming into studio. My colleague there, Khayelihle Khumalo.